Ayatollah Ruhollah Khomeini, the legendary religious leader of Iran, he succeeded Shah Pahlavi as supreme religious leader in 1979. After years of opposition to Shah Pahlavi, Ayatollah Khomeini became Iran's supreme religious leader in 1979. Following his Ayatollahship, Khomeini tried to depose the Shah for his Western connections. After the revolution, Ayatollah Khomeini became Iran's religious and political leader for life. Ruhollah Mousavi, whose name means "inspired by God," was born on September 24, 1902, in the Iranian town of Khomein. His renowned title, Ruhollah Khomeini, was derived from his hometown. Seyed Mourteza, Khomeini's elder brother, took charge of the family. Khomeini was a vivacious, powerful, and athletic youngster. So, although Iran's king, Reza Shah, undermined religious leaders' influence and pushed a more secular Iran, the most influential religious authorities kept quiet and urged their supporters to do so. In 1962, Khomeini started seriously opposing the Shah's plans. A series of events followed, which would permanently alter Iranian politics. As Khomeini said in June 1963, the Iranian people would welcome the Shah's departure if he did not alter Iran's political course. As a consequence, Khomeini was imprisoned. Then, in April 1964, Khomeini was released and returned to Qom. The Shah maintained strong links with the US and was soft on Israel, according to Khomeini. In the autumn of 1964, Khomeini was imprisoned and transported to Turkey. In September 1965, Khomeini moved to Najaf, Iraq, where he could don the customary Shiite cleric and scholar garb. He stayed 13 years. During his exile, Khomeini formulated Velayat-e-Faqih, a doctrine of an Islamic state governed by the clergy. He presented his theories to Iranians at a local Islamic school. He started recording sermon videos, which he sneaked into Iran and sold in bazaars. Using these tactics, Khomeini became the undisputed head of the Iranian resistance against the Shah. The opposition was gaining momentum. Military force was used to disperse a three-day throng at a Qom religious school. He predicted impending liberation from imperialism's chains. In 1978, other rallies in support of Khomeini were severely suppressed by Iranian security forces. With Khomeini in Iraq so close, the Shah feared for his safety in the midst of riots. A few days later, Khomeini was challenged by Iraqi forces and offered the option of staying in Iraq or leaving. It was a no-brainer. Khomeini went to Paris, his final home before his victorious return to Iran. But I cannot take any specific position or duty. His comeback occurred in 1979, few months after moving to Paris. The Shah sought support from the US, but was forced to flee the nation due to the revolution. Despite his words in Paris, Khomeini was universally recognized as Iran's new leader and supreme leader. Meanwhile, the Shah was looking for a location to spend the rest of his life in. The Shah had cancer. With this in mind, the US grudgingly let the Shah in. On November 4, 1979, a gang of Iranians took over 60 American hostages in the US Embassy in Tehran. As a new Iranian resistance of Western influence, Khomeini saw an opportunity. The new Iranian government and the Carter administration started a stalemate that lasted until late January 1981, when Ronald Reagan took office, due to US sanctions and oil embargoes on Iran. Khomeini didn't care as much about the secular left's protests when he took power as he did when the Shah cared about Khomeini's calls for reform. Khomeini had his teachings and views taught in public schools, and many of those protesting against his dictatorship were executed. From the tiniest village to his own office, he ensured that friendly clerics filled the official ranks. Moreover, Khomeini thought that the new Iran's principles needed to be exported. Iraq and Iran have historically fought for border territories and petroleum riches. On September 22, 1980, Saddam Hussein launched a ground and air invasion against Iran. Though Iraq achieved early successes, the conflict stalemated 6 years later in June 1982. Salman Rushdie's novel The Satanic Verses was published in 1989 and prompted Khomeini's famous fatwa demanding Rushdie's death. On June 3, 1989, Grand Ayatollah Ruhollah Khomeini died. Iran is still a religious culture, and Khomeini's efforts and decade of reign will undoubtedly continue to affect the country.